Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome. This is Abbas with you, your host. And in case you're feeling low on energy, don't worry because today's episode is all about renewable energy. So by the time this episode is done, you'll be up and moving around. And yeah, I'm no expert, and that's why I have an expert on board, Dr. Saeed Mohammed Al-Sakhri from Shell, Oman. And generally, I memorize the expertise, if that's the right way of saying it. But today I had to actually write it down because Mr. Saeed over here, he's got many areas to manage. And your experience says that you have done climate change and energy management, environmental compliance, environmental management, research and technology, strategies, and business improvement. That's a mouthful over there, Mr. Saeed. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abbas, for having me today to shed some light on Oman Shell energy transition initiatives and projects. And glad to be here, and hopefully this will be more of an entertaining, informative session.
Yes, we were just discussing that off the record, that, you need to make your content more on the infotainment side, where you're passing on information and you're also entertaining people. Also, I would like to mention this, that I stole this from the internet. It's not mine.
That's fine. But yeah, indeed, it should be informative. It should be entertaining, because sustainability subject is for everyone, right? It's not for experts. It's not for technical people. It should be for everyone. And I think everyone should play part and bigger role in this space. Yeah.
So, Mr. Saeed, jumping straight into the questions that I have over here, how does Shell Oman's approach align with Oman Vision 2040 when it comes to economic diversification?
Yeah, sure, Abbas. Thank you for that. I think any organization, a big organization like Shell, should actually set a very clear strategy when it comes to running the business. Yeah. So we do have our own powering progress strategy,
right?
And within the powering progress strategy, there's a lot of pillars. Yeah, there is the pillars related to the net zero emission aspiration. There's a pillar related to respecting nature, and there is the other pillars related to people and other aspects. Shell has clearly set its own energy transition strategy. So in Q1 this year, Shell actually developed an updated energy transition strategy, which looks into different aspects of the business. Yeah. And of course, this strategy is really interlinked with the local strategies, specifically for Oman. Looking at Oman 2040 vision, there are lots of national priorities being set to look into the sustainability, environmental, and economic diversification. The carbon elements, the energy transition element is really appearing very much there.
Right.
And Oman is one of those countries by which number of those aspiration and ambitions really cut across Shell sort of ambitions that we put. I will give you a few examples on the energy transition strategy, the updated one. Yeah. So basically, as a target, we are planning to cut down our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by half. And that's by 2030. Of course.
Can you elaborate on the Scope 1, Scope 2?
So basically on the scoping, yeah. So the emissions come from different sources. And to help the technical community basically to understand what are the different scopes in terms of reporting and how to basically identify opportunities on how to abate or cut down those emissions, they had to group those into different categories.
Gotcha.
Yeah? So that's why they call it Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. The Scope 1 is more of an indirect emissions, which basically emissions that comes from our operations.
Right.
Scope 2 is more of emissions are really emitted due to the imported electricity, because sometimes you are not the generator of power, and then you need to really import electricity from the neighbors or from the national grid, and that imposes some emissions, and that's what we call it as Scope 2 emissions. Scope 3 emissions, again, is indirect, but this is more related to the supply chain, yeah? So if you import your products, import your gas, for example, of course, definitely that will be used for power generation, but that burning of that hydrocarbon molecule will really result into certain emissions, and that's what we call it Scope 3. The majority of the emissions comes from Scope 3. The one that we really can control today is basically Scope 1 and Scope 2, and we're putting a lot of sort of controls into that. Yeah. So that's one of the targets. There are many other targets.
So am I understanding this correctly? Like the more you go higher on the scope level, the more the proximity increases between the organization and the emission that's taking place?
Yes and no. Sort of.
Okay.
It doesn't explain the tiering approach. It's more of the scope, the boundaries, the boundaries. So scope 1 is within your boundary. Scope 2 is within your boundary, but you're importing it from outside. Scope 3 is beyond your boundary. Yeah, if we can put it. Which is again, scope 3 is bigger in terms of magnitude, in terms of the jurisdiction, the distribution.
And do they differ in terms of how much the organization can control?
Yes.
These emissions when you categorize them in certain scopes?
Exactly. So when you want to categorize your emissions and to define what you can contribute, is basically you need to understand what is your current status. And I think one of the very initial step is that you need to measure and calculate your emissions. And that's what we are doing. Yeah, we do reporting. And part of that reporting is basically to understand how much is your footprint, carbon footprint, and how you can contribute into reducing those emissions. Yeah. Carbon footprint, I mean, in different aspects, from diesel consumption, flaring, talking about oil and gas, of course. And our role basically is to look what are the quick wins, what are the low-hanging fruits, what are the things that we can really cut down the emissions with minimum cost, yeah?
Right.
And then looking to different opportunities.
It's like when I'm sitting in my bedroom and I look at my bedroom, how messy it is. I try to fix the immediate problem. So I'm like, okay, this apple shouldn't be here, this half-eaten apple. This should go first thing, right? I mean, I can settle the other stuff.
Why I'm laughing?
But this needs to go away.
One of the solutions, just cover it, right? We don't do that. We need to understand the business. What are the root causes and what are the different potential sources and how can we...
And also when you talk about Oman Vision 2040, back in the day when we would say Oman Vision 2040, it would seem far away. Now we're almost there.
Close.
Very close. We're all getting old, ladies and gentlemen.
As a fact, for mega projects like oil and gas projects, let's talk about hydrogen or any other project, which will come, I think, later. Those are sort of a long duration development projects, because it starts with planning, and then you discuss what are the concepts to be selected, and then you need to design, and then you need to construct, and then you need to operate. But that takes from the 2040 sort of duration. So we need to really accelerate in order for us to achieve the intended outcomes and the target being set ahead of time.
Inshallah. So, Mr. Said, tell me that what are some of the social and economic benefits with Shell Oman's approach that you guys are taking now in terms of renewable energy? So can you list out a few benefits for us? So, in the end, when you get rewarded for something, it always sounds better.
Yes, of course. Of course, any project should create some benefits to the nation, right? Benefits, of course. Let's forget about the commercial benefits. Let's talk about the social benefits.
Let's start with social because everyone can relate to that. Yes.
So indeed, Shell has been in Oman for decades now and really had a pivot role basically in the energy development sector, and again involvement in the energy transition. We have executed a number of projects, energy transition projects. A good example is basically the solar into schools, what we call part of our sort of gift to the nation.
Okay.
And we have introduced more than 25 schools by which we installed solar panels to the schools.
Wow.
And taking the context of the social benefit is not only providing solar panels and providing clean energy to the school, rather than what will be the learnings or the message that we are sending to the future generation.
I was just getting that. I was going to tell you that it's about looking at it every day. And, if you can spark that wonder into someone's mind.
Yes. It raises the question among the kids, the students.
Right.
Okay, solar panels, those are important. Why we need to have those? And then what will be our part basically to do this?
Right.
And we started to see the results, what we call it a replica effect, by which you see students are now thinking about different other initiatives, biodiesel, using the existing natural resources. How can we basically contribute to this rather than focusing on solar panels? What other things?
Right.
Clean energies from natural resources, surroundings, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So lots of other projects that we did. If you go a little bit to the commercial scale, we do have another project in Sohar Solar Qabas.
Okay.
Not here if you read about it, which is basically a solar station which was built within Sohar free zone to provide clean power to the nearby smelter facility. Just looking at the facts, it comprises of 88,000 solar panels, so a little bit bigger scale, and generates around 25 megawatts of clean power, which is equivalent to powering 10,000 homes.
Wow.
The facts itself, if you share those facts to the community, it will really have that impact that yes, we are really contributing, and it will really raise the element of others. I mean, let's develop something similar, and let's do something similar to this, and to have our sort of impacts. So going back to the benefits, I would call it co-benefits. And I will touch base on the social benefits. Basically, when we opt for the solar in school project and other projects, we looked at the market. Who are the entrepreneurs who are available in the market, the local SMEs who can really provide that solution.
Oh, wow.
Which again raised an element of the in-country value. And the local SMEs development. And that's very key because indirectly it creates job. It raises the capacity building understanding of this technology.
And even the government has been focusing on the SME sector a lot because this is the new generation of business-minded local men and women who are trying to create more jobs.
Exactly.
And also, make some money.
So it's more of a win-win,
It is.
So you have your own objectives that meets with your sort of aspired strategy and targets, but at the same time you are creating opportunities. And I think that's very important if you create opportunities for the locals. Whether having their own small, medium businesses or job creation or even capacity building in this area. Because I think if we want to advance toward 2030 aspiration, 2040 aspiration, meeting those targets, I think we need to develop this space.
Right.
Other than the surrounding community and local SMEs and entrepreneurship development, it's also about research and development. R&D, we call it. So with academia, with the researcher bodies. So basically, we do have a lot of interaction with them basically on what are the projects, initiatives that we can collaborate, work together, and to help the nation basically, and the academia as well, to move from demo to prototype or pilots and then to mega scale projects. So those are the benefits that we are talking about. And I think those are the key basically if you want to advance in this space.
Now let's jump towards the green energy sector. Okay, on my list of questions, actually, I even came across blue energy, but we'll get to that later on. But for now, we have a project called Green Energy Oman, GEO project that's taking place. So can you tell me how will this contribute to Oman's decarbonization targets?
Wonderful. Maybe let me start by defining what is green hydrogen.
Please,
later on, I will define the blue hydrogen. I think it's very key. So basically, green hydrogen is produced using renewables. That's why it's called green, being it solar or wind, through an electrolyzer system by which you split the water, H2O, into hydrogen and oxygen. As simple as that. In fact, this project is one of the very promising projects because it will help the nation, Oman, basically to supply clean, green fuels. I think that's very important because it will help into decarbonization strategies.
Of course,
lots of initiatives can be done by that. So about GEO basically is, as what you said, is Green Energy Oman. Is one of the most promising clean projects, clean fuel projects that we are focusing on. It's basically managed by a consortium of a number of experts. Of course, Shell is one.
Right.
Sharing few facts, it's a 4 gigawatts wind and solar green fuel facility located near Duqm.
And when you say 4 gigawatts, can you put that into perspective by telling me how many homes can it power? Because that's the math I'm going with now. Like, for example, when I think about power generation, for example.
So GEO, Green Energy Oman, is one of the projects that we are actually working on. It's still at the very initial stage. It is managed by a group of consortium. Shell is one, of course. And I think this project, of course, is one of the leading projects that will really help Oman to achieve its decarbonization sort of efforts. Sharing few numbers, it's a 4 gigawatt wind and solar green fuels facility located in Duqm with the potential to expand to 25 gigawatts. And if you take that into number of the assets and facilities and infrastructure that we need to build, we need around 160 wind turbines. You know the wind turbines with the mist and everything?
Seen it,
So we need around 160 to generate that amount of power. So it's really a huge project. It will accommodate some potential space, but again, the amount of power that will be generated will be really.
And it is windy in Duqm, actually.
It is.
Like,
so there are few wind studies being done. So few wind draws report, we call it.
Right.
The potential is huge, and this really, I'll go to the point of that Oman has a really huge potential when it comes to renewables, being solar, wind, and lots of studies prove that, and on the geospatial location of Oman, it's also Oman can act a very important role into being sort of the hub of
Right.
green, clean fuels to be exported across.
Because we are green. Oman is green.
Of
Oman
course.
is clean.
Of course.
And now we just need to clean up the fuel.
And we have the natural resources that
We do.
enables us to take us
to make Oman more beautiful.
to that space. Exactly.
And
So-
I think the ultimate goal would also be to consider global warming as well.
Of course.
Right? Because in the end, we know in Oman,
Yes.
I mean, the heat,
Yes.
sitting in your car, the first minute, getting burned by the steel, the metal part of your seatbelt, it's always painful,
Yes,
So
yes.
I think even one of the goals, or I think this could also be the goal of reducing global warming could be prioritized as like a high
Yes,
priority
it is.
goal, right?
It is.
If I'm not wrong.
So
I mean.
it is a high priority goal, of course. Main source or main contribution to climate change is basically the CO2 emissions. And when we say decarbonization, is basically to take the carbon out from the atmosphere and
Right.
look for any other alternatives, including carbon capture and storage and utilization and so on and so forth. So yes, indeed. If you look at the Oman Vision 2040 strategy, the orderly transition to net zero emissions, I think there is a mention there on a number of those initiatives, green initiatives, that will really touch base onto the decarbonization efforts and will help basically ultimately to reduce climate change. The point that you mentioned, the temperature and the heat, yes, we looked at the studies. The trends into the temperature rising is really increasing. And from Paris Agreement, basically we want to control that rise of temperature by 1.5 degrees, which is basically entails a lot of efforts need to be taken basically to reach to that aspiration.
Of course, because you're talking about dealing with nature.
Of course.
But
again, people is part of that. As we speak, the population growth is increasing. More people means more energy, more food, more water, all of that will be required. So how to create that balance, So we need more energy, we need more power, we need more of air-conditioned systems. Yeah. But at the same time, we have the non-renewable resources, gas, for example, and then how to optimize that and how to create sort of an additional supply of energy, cleaner energy, to offset that change,
And basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but cooling takes less energy than heating, right? Heating, or is it almost the same? It's just like...
It depends, of course, on the capacity, how much...
like if we take the same room, say in terms of square meters, and one room needs to be heated, one room needs to be cooled down. So
I think heating is more, because heating you need more, water. Right? So, but for water, you need to ship the water to the space. You store it somewhere, and then you heat it, and then you generate, and you need to pump the heat, steam, and then generating that heat. Cooling, I can't see the numbers, but I anticipate from my high-level understanding of both processes. I think yes, heating might be higher.
Okay.
Energy requirements compared to cooling.
Well, I have one of my questions answered now. Okay. This was there for, 15 years. I was holding on to this question. Right. Finally, alhamdulillah, I have an expert to answer that question. Thanks. Mr. Saeed, we have come to the most exciting part of our conversation. I was excited before as well, but now we're coming on to blue energy. We touched upon green energy. Now we're on blue energy, and I have no idea what it means.
All right.
So that's why I need you right now.
We gave it fancy name, blue and green, but different processes.
Okay.
So maybe for blue, let me again explain the definition. So blue hydrogen is basically produced from natural gas. That's the difference between blue and green. Green is from from renewables.
Right.
But blue is from basically natural gas.
Gotcha.
Through a process called steam methane reforming, by which we basically crack the natural gas, which reacts with steam and produce hydrogen and carbon dioxide.
Interesting.
There's another way. There's another name of hydrogen production, similar approach, which is gray hydrogen. But the difference between gray and blue is basically the blue, the CO2 emitted has to be stored somewhere.
Okay.
In subsurface. It has to be stored.
Right.
Permanently stored. For the gray, it's basically emitted. So that's why it's gray. It's not super clean.
Right. Is it similar to like a gray water tank that people have sometimes?
Similar concept.
Similar concept, right?
Conventional method of producing hydrogen, but the CO2 is not really stored somewhere. And remember the definition when I said about climate change and decarbonization?
Yes.
Decarbonization is basically taking CO2 out from the atmosphere. From the environment. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's basically the concept of blue hydrogen.
Okay.
So in Oman Shell, we are also active in this space. We do have a project called Blue Horizons. You might hear it in the media, blue horizons, blue hydrogen, blue ammonia.
Blue ammonia, yes, I've heard that.
downstream.
Yes.
So there are different projects from the project itself. We are planning to produce basically the anticipated production capacity is around 500 tons per day of blue hydrogen, and that's for domestic use,
Okay.
and around 1 million tons per annum of blue ammonia, and that's for export. Now, linking this to Oman Vision 2040 and the decarbonization strategy, we see this project is very important project. The technology adopted to produce blue hydrogen compared to green hydrogen is much more convenient, if I say. Lots of concepts need to be proved, of course, but it's easier process compared to green in terms of finding the right technology,
Right. Okay.
you know, bringing the solars and then storage of green energy. That's a bit challenging at this stage.
Right.
It is improving as we go, but it's a bit challenging at this stage. So we see that blue hydrogen is basically a way of how we are going to pave the way towards, towards green. Yeah. So that's the analogy that we are adopting now. We call it low carbon fuels project. Yeah. So low carbon fuels. Let's understand the processes. Let's understand what are the challenges, the open switches. Let's resolve those, and then to prepare for the green energy development. Yeah. So it's very important because there are lots of challenges when it comes to hydrogen production space, being it technical, being it policy and regulation setup, being it the incentives, it could be also the off-taker requirements, the certification, the storage requirements as well. That's very key, and we'll come back to the CCS piece. All of those elements need to be addressed, and we see this project, the Blue Horizon project, as sort of what we call it internally as a trailblazer project, which is basically a first of its kind project, which will really help into unlock
first of its kind for
Oman,
for Oman, all right,
as blue hydrogen, and it will really pave the way towards unlocking number of those challenges and uncertainties. Yeah.
So, Mr. Said, we spoke about carbon capture and storage, CCS for short. Yeah. See, I'm getting there. I'll be applying soon. I'll be sending you my resume now. I'm almost there. Okay, if you're a doctor, I'm almost a D now of the doctor. Yeah, maybe. So, tell me, how does this basically help in hard to decarbonize sectors? Like when it comes to those sectors, how does this process help in that situation?
Yeah. Maybe we'll start with the strategy again, but this time the national strategy. So Oman has developed its own orderly transition, the national or Oman National Orderly Transition to Net Zero Emission document or strategy. And in this document, of course, stated the baseline, where are we today, and then what are the sort of different levers that we need to leverage on, basically to reach us to the decarbonization targets or ambitions that we are setting. There are few elements there. I will pick few. Yeah, for example, electrification and renewables is being addressed there. Battery electric technology. Yeah, sustainable hydrogen, blue and green. Yeah, energy efficiency, carbon capture and storage is also being mentioned there as one of the levers that will be really required to take us to decarbonization efforts. Yeah, all of those elements being mentioned part of that national strategy. And carbon capture and storage, as a final remark on that document, is being recognized as one of the important energy transition system that will really help us to decarbonize.
Right.
Not only for the project, but it will also help other industries, the hard to abate industries, to decarbonize as well. Because there is a concept of carbon capture and storage hubs. Yeah, because storage is within the geological formation, and those storage hubs might have the capacity to accommodate CO2, and it depends on where it's located. You can also link or interlink your network, CO2 network, from different hard-to-abate industry, of course, subject if they have their own commitment to decarbonize, to link it or hook up to those, to those CO2 pipelines, which will go again to the CO2 storage area.
Right. Now, talking about carbon capture, going back to it, because I'm not educated in this field. So, is carbon capturing process, is this a process of like literally like capturing carbon from the environment and like reducing it? And then is this like a standalone process on its own, or is it a part of another process?
Yes.
I'm kind of lost.
By the way, the capture piece itself is a standalone sort of work stream. Yeah?
There you go. It makes sense.
There are lots of technologies, pre-combustion, post-combustion capture technologies.
Right.
Amine-based and other technologies. And there are lots of technologies in the market to capture the CO2 either before combusting the fuel or after combustion.
So this is like a double whammy. because
Yes.
we're also capturing carbon from the environment.
Yes.
And at the same time, we're going towards sustainable and renewable energy.
Of course.
All
But
right.
there is also a technology which is famous as well. It's direct air capture, which is basically, I saw one of the articles, they call it mechanical trees. So, trees take CO2, gives CO2.
Yes.
But this is more of mechanical man-made tree by which it takes CO2 and gives,
Wow.
rather than giving oxygen, it takes CO2 for the processes.
Right,
So
gotcha.
there are different technologies for capture. And you will hear a lot carbon capture storage or carbon capture and utilization. CO2 is a natural gas that can create a benefit. Although when it's there in the atmosphere, it causes global warming, but CO2 also can be used for different multiple uses, yeah? And
Right.
I think that's the element that we want to say is basically, rather than having a byproduct, we just, don't use it, you can really use it for different purposes, yeah? But the focus for Blue Horizon or Blue Hydrogen project is more of storage. It has to be stored permanently in
Right.
order to satisfy or meet the off-taker requirements, yeah?
Dr. Saeed, we've come to our last question now. Unfortunately, I would say, because I wish this conversation was longer, because I became half an expert, I would say, on renewable energy now. So tell me, how is Oman Shell leveraging its expertise in terms of developing these projects, local CCS projects in Oman? And now I'm going to say CCS because I'm fancy. It's carbon capture and storage
Yeah.
for people tuning in.
Yeah. Well, I will start by a personal reflection. Being part of Oman Shell and Shell global community, I'm really glad basically that as an Omani to contribute to this story and to, of course, to learn and leverage from the existing Shell experience. Yeah. So yes, Shell has a very long standing experience when it comes to, of course, energy production. Yeah. So it could be renewables, hydrogen, and others. Yeah. There are a number of projects Shell have executed elsewhere. I will give you an example of Quest CCS project in Canada. It is now running for almost a decade.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, I'm having sort of a weekly discussion with those teams, basically to share the thoughts, share the learnings, share our sort of challenges that we are facing here in the country, and also to hear from them on how they address those challenges.
Right.
Challenges could be technical challenges related to better understanding this. I mean, the formation itself to enable CCS, challenges related to policy and regulation, and we continue the discussion with them on how they unlock those challenges.
Right.
They were the first movers, other projects, in other jurisdictions. I'm sure they had a lot of learning, and we are trying to leverage those learnings to Oman.
Right.
When it comes to the challenges, I started to mention a number of those, yeah, and I think those challenges, basically, to me, challenging is a learning.
It is.
If your project is not challenging, then we are not learning. But part of that learning is basically sitting in a round table with experts will really let you think, yeah? And it promotes that thinking piece, which is very important, basically, for us to think on what other solutions.
Right.
For being involved in Blue Horizon project, for example, I spent a lot of days reading a lot of articles, relevant or irrelevant, just to widen that understanding and experience. Right. And I think from there you tend to feel that there are lots of knowledge sort of being cascaded, and it's just a matter of how to bring those knowledge and start practicing it, making it into action, part of the project discussion. So I'm currently leading the regulatory or regulation work stream, part of the project. And in this particular project, we started basically to build the understanding. I will split those into 3 phases. So first phase was basically to define, which is basically building the understanding on the policy and regulation requirements to enable scale hydrogen and CCS projects in Oman. And then moving it to, after the defining, is to basically to discuss and then to align and agree. Yeah, because once you get the full understanding, then you need to basically initiate the discussion with your counterparty, with your partners, with your project team, and to make sure that whatever being discussed is basically aligned with the project requirement. But again, let's discuss now or agree later stage on the how to adopt those learnings and those requirements. So we have conducted a study. We looked at different jurisdictions, regulatory elements. We looked at 12 jurisdictions, around 12 jurisdictions, and we looked at what are the pros and cons from those policy and regulatory elements. We pulled those elements, We call it the must-haves or the regulatory elements needed for the project. And then we initiated the discussion. And the way how we address the challenges basically is that we collaborate. I think collaboration is key. Collaboration with different parties within Oman, externally, internally within Shell, Fox, colleagues, different entities, global team, and basically come up with a picture, with a story, right? A storyline on how to address those elements, and let's collaborate and test those assumptions, yeah? And this is what we have been doing. We are really part of the MEM-led core team, looking at GIG greenhouse gases discussions, as well as the CCUS discussions. And in that platform, it's basically a very good opportunity for us to share the learnings to the community and also get the learnings from them. Yeah?
And is raising awareness amongst people, be it local people or even internationally, is that one of the challenges that you face? Or do you think that people are educated enough around the globe to know what are the benefits of renewable energy or going towards this route?
Yes, so if you go 10 years back, so less people there talking about those subjects. Yeah,
exactly.
We keep hearing about climate change at the national sort of strategic, bodies. Yeah,
right.
Like UNFCCC, COP conference. There's climate change, but we don't really see it, and that's the difference between environment and safety. Yeah? When it comes to safety, cut finger is really prompt and immediate. You see the issue, then let's resolve it. But when it comes to environment, any CO2 you release today, you will see the impact in the upcoming years, and it's more of a trend analysis. It's more of it's increasing, but you don't really realize that it's happening, but it is happening. So yes, raising awareness, I think it's very important.
Right.
We keep raising awareness, and I think before the interview we talked about the sustainability, energy transition discussions is really emerging.
Yes.
Whatever we discuss today might not be valid tomorrow, might be maybe advanced. People will start, because I remember 5-7 years back, we kept talking about renewables only, solar and how to advance solar, the CSB, the storage.
So basically people will be watching this video 50 years from now, watching me and Dr. Saeed over here, and they'll be like, wow, this is like a time capsule, like right now.
They're talking about hydrogen. Oh, that's very old.
Wow.
That's the reality.
Yeah. Two handsome men talking about renewable energy, at least one right there. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So indeed. So it's changing. It's emerging, and we need to be basically up to date when it comes to whatever they're emerging. And I think leveraging on the experience, being it Shell or the surrounding, and even from the literature, I think that's very key. I think it's a very key element also to be in touch with the academia as well. They do a lot of great initiatives. I've been a number of those sessions by which they discuss opportunities of how we can decarbonize using different technologies. And one of the interesting ones is basically to use the natural, it's a byproduct, waste, for example.
Right.
How can we use waste and to create value from waste? I think that's a very promising project, Because at the end of the day, for you to achieve the 2050 aspiration, the net zero emission aspiration, for example, you need to leverage on a number of projects and initiatives. I'm talking about mitigation, because there's the adaptation, how to live with it, but there is the mitigation piece. But I'm pretty sure post 2030, you'll see that we are running out of projects. Lots of projects being executed now.
Right.
But what will happen post 2030? So we need to be up to date. We need to know what are the things that we need to do now, the quick wins. What are the things maybe it's very expensive now, let's do it at a later stage.
Right.
That's, I think, an area that really require conversation, So I think collaboration is key, how to address those challenges. You cannot resolve any issue working in silos. I think we need to collaborate with the local communities, global communities, leverage experience that we have, and then from there you take it,
Inshallah. I hope all the future plans that you have come into motion, and they're also successful, inshallah. And of course, we pray this for everyone out there watching. Thank you so much, Dr. Saeed, for coming in and telling us all about renewable energy. Now I know there's green energy. Now I know there's blue energy. I know there's there was something
gray
CCS. Almost there, ladies and gentlemen, inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Saeed from Oman Shell, coming in and telling us all about renewable energy. And thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again, inshallah. Maybe 5 years down the line, we might have some developments that we might need you again.
Better environment,
inshallah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.